Hi, guys, and welcome to Graham the Gargoyle, Graham's Grief. This is Chapter 5, Smoke and Mirrors and Pepper. Remember what we said about Flynn's little presentation about volcanoes. Pay close attention to some of the facts that you learn about volcanoes because that will help you find out what's going on with Blord and what he's saying and whether he's saying things correctly or not. Anyway, here we go. Graham arrived at the plateau out of breath. Connecting the upright landform to the lush precipice he now stood on was a rope bridge. He was sure Ott had traveled across it. As to whether Blord and his friends had, Graham had no idea. All three, along with the troll, were already on the plateau. Blord had Ott by his vest and was attempting to hang him on one of the outstretched arms of Malcolm Parsons' statue. Skinner and Reginald were emptying out his troll friend's knapsack, sending his papers into the air. Ott was putting up a good fight, landing a few blows to Blord's forearms, but not anywhere else. His tiny arms just didn't have enough reach. Blord soon had him hooked on Parsons' left arm. Graham raced across the bridge, making sure to avoid the yawning hole halfway across. He had always hoped to mend that section, but had never gotten around to it. He had seen some level twos out on the plateau and wouldn't want any of them falling through the bridge. Those that young couldn't fly at all. Not that he was any better with his wings. Instead of taking flight to avoid the open air, he hugged the rope handhold on his left and swung across. He sprinted the rest of the way and approached his trapped friend, intentionally keeping his back to Blord. Graham gulped in breaths as he tried to regain his now haggard composure. He also avoided looking over the edge of the plateau, knowing a glimpse of the 200-foot drop would only spur a fit of dizziness. The diameter of the landform was only about 50 feet. Parsons' statue stood about 10 feet from the northern edge. The older gargoyle's face was drenched in sunlight. Graham always liked the farmer's inviting smile. He couldn't unhook the troll by himself. Ott's vest was looped onto the arm all the way down to the statue's shoulder. Knowing this, he turned to face Blord. The bully was covered in what appeared to be ash. Black grit coated his neck, shoulders, and most of his chest. Only a little was smudged across his face. He looked like an overcooked steak. "Get him down," Graham said. Blord turned his back to Graham and strolled over to the edge of the plateau facing Mount Prometheus. He spread wide his wings, allowing them to catch the stiff breeze that was a fixture of Parsons' plateau. He allowed his body to be buffeted, completely comfortable with the prospect that a strong gust could blow him off. Blord had been flying since he was a level 4, a fact he never let Graham forget. However, while the bully could take to the air, he wasn't known for his endurance. His bulk worked against him there. He could fly, just not for long. Maybe Graham could use that to his advantage. The air swirled around Graham, reminding him that the atmosphere around the volcano was filled with warm pockets. Maybe he would get lucky and stumble upon a toasty updraft to send him aloft. He certainly couldn't depend on his own airworthiness. Blord clapped his hands together and spun about. "You're late. You missed it. I already did my part of the race." "What are you talking about?" Blord gestured at the black grit coating him. "I flew over the volcano already. Can't you tell? This is ash. I'm quite anxious to scrub it off, but Reginald said you'd demand evidence of my flight." Reginald gave a knowing nod as he flung one of Ott's notebooks over the edge. "But a race means we do it together." Graham looked at Ott to back him up. His friend's eyes were welling up. Blord continued, ignoring Graham's protest. "Skinner has my time, don't you?" The portly gargoyle waddled up next to his boss. "Yep, he did it in 4 minutes. Pretty impressive if you ask me, which you just did." He smirked and nodded at Blord. Blord sneered. "I would have done it in 3 if not for that blasted harpy. Filthy creature tried to knock me out of the sky. Whose territory does she think this is?" Graham knew Blord hated dirt and was curious why the gargoyle would tolerate all the ash covering him. The fact that he had a run-in with one of the realm's foulest creatures, a harpy, also must have greatly upset the bully. Harpies, half giant bird and half savage human, were not only disgusting, they were also ruthless and prone to doing just what Blord claimed. That part of his story rang true. "How'd you get the ash on you?" "Misjudged a little and got blown into a patch of volcanic discharge." Blord put his hands on his hips. "Are you going to fly, or what?" "Get Ott down," Graham repeated. "I'll get him down once you honor the challenge. 1 lap over Mount Prometheus and back is all I'm asking. You don't even have to dive bomb the crater like I did. Surely the son of someone so high placed in the council can do such a simple task. Blord strutted over to Ott and slapped at the troll's dangling feet. The troll sneezed. Graham said, I'll do it. Just let me talk to Ott alone a minute. Ott sneezed 2 more times. Fine, but don't think of chickening out. Blord stepped away from the troll. As soon as the bully had been put some distance between himself and Ott, the troll stopped sneezing. Graham hastened over to his friend. Sorry I was late. Flynn and Mom cornered me this morning and... He's lying, Ott said, glaring at Blord, who was now over at the edge, tossing rocks at an unfortunate bird who had glided too close. Huh? Blord never flew over the volcano, Ott said. How do you know? Did you get here first? Ott shook his head. No, they were already here. Blord had that so-called ash on him when I arrived. He claimed that he had already run his part of the race then, too. Ott shot a distasteful look at the bully. Well, how did he get himself covered in ash if he didn't fly over it? That's not ash. Ott rubbed his nose, attempting to stifle a sneeze. What is it? I think it's pepper. They must have covered him in it. It looks like ash, but it sure doesn't smell like it. I can't tell. My sniffer isn't as good as yours. Compared to the poor sense of smell gargoyles had, trolls were bloodhounds, capable of detecting even the slightest pesky odor. Graham had watched Ott ferret out a blossom possum in a field of clampum grass with his gifted nose. Are you sure? I think so. This story sounds fishy, don't you think? Graham nodded. This changed everything. He wouldn't have to race. He wouldn't have to trust his wings. He allowed the hint of a smile to play across his face. Blord was now kicking clumps of moss into the air. You two need to hurry this up. I don't have all day. You don't have to fly. Just tell him he lied. I looked over at Blord. That won't work. I need more proof that he's tricking us. Besides, they won't let you down unless I fly. Graham slumped his shoulders and his tiny wings pathetically took on a defeated appearance. And I can't get you down by myself. Graham stepped toward the bully. Blord rubbed his hands together. Now you're talking. Let's get this over. Let's get this over and be done with. I'm going to love seeing you drop like a stone, Graham. No way you're going to be able to make it. Graham inched his way to the plateau edge leading to Mount Prometheus, kicking free gravel that stumbled over the precipice. He tried to calm his shaking legs. In the relative distance, Mount Prometheus rumbled, billowing darkness into the morning air. I changed my mind. You got to fly through one of those ash clouds like I did, Blord said. Graham didn't look up to answer. His eyes were focused on the edge of the sheer drop. He tried to keep his dizziness in check, but felt his body sway slightly. I'll do it, but you have to promise to get down after. Blord held up one hand and placed his other on his opposite shoulder. I swear to do that. Take to the air, loser. Graham pulled his gaze from the drop before him and stared out at the sky. The clouds were light and fluffy, the breeze strong and filled with a slight sulphurous smell that was probably overwhelming his troll friend. He fought the nausea rising in his stomach. Here he was, about to face his biggest fear, flying. He had never succeeded in any serious takeoffs from any of the launch platforms, certainly not the highest one at the school, which was nothing compared to the height that he now faced. His wings weren't up to the task. Everyone in his class had more developed wings. Theirs were all wider, bigger, and stronger. He was not even close to being ready for his first flight at the end of the week, much less this. Graham slowly exhaled, attempting to calm himself. His grandfather believed in him completely. His grandfather had all the faith in the world in his abilities. His father did not. He heard his father's voice in his head. You'll never fly if you don't trust your wings. Graham closed his eyes, wishing he were back home, still listening to his sister drone on about her volcano project. Come on, get it over with, Blord blurted out. You don't have anything to worry about. Just keep your eyes peeled for any geysers of lava. Those things shoot at least 50 feet high. I had to dodge 3 of them, and one almost gave me a magma bath on my return flight. Graham shook his head, not believing what he had just heard. He opened his eyes and glared at the bully. What did you say? The lava. You gotta watch out for it, Blord growled. Wouldn't want itty-bitty Graham to catch fire. Graham looked over at Ott. The troll, despite hanging there most uncomfortably, was smiling from ear to ear. The bully had messed up, blathered on too much. Graham had caught him. He walked over to the bully. The challenge is a lie. You're a liar. You're trying to trick me. Blord's stern expression slipped into panic before twisting into inflated anger. What are you getting at? Are you backing out of the challenge? He pointed at Ott strung up on the statue. Graham stood his ground. You just said lava came out of Mount Prometheus. That's wrong. Blord nervously shifted his eyes over to Reginald and Skinnerd. Both waved their fists at Graham. What? Blord said incredulously. Graham stabbed a finger at the bully, drawing it up just short so he wouldn't actually touch the gargoyle's hide. You never flew over that volcano. Lava doesn't come out of it, only cinder and ash. Any 4-year-old could tell you it's a cinder cone volcano and thus doesn't produce lava. Graham smiled. Actually, it had been an 8-year-old who had informed him. He owed his sister in a big way. Floyd took a step back. Okay, maybe I exaggerated a bit about the lava, but get a look at all this ash covering me. He stuck out his blackened chest. My friend seems to think you covered yourself in pepper. Blord scowled at the still dangling troll. I'm not flying for a liar. Graham crossed his arms and marched over to his friend. He paused for a moment to inspect the face of Malcolm Parsons. Had the rock-hard gargoyle winked at him, or had it been a trick of the light? Now, either you fly over the volcano with me, or you help me get Ott down. Blord marched over to Graham and leaned down to stare coldly at him. No one gets away with calling me a liar. You're going to regret this. Just you wait. Blord ran a finger across his blackened chest, gathering a healthy dollop of the alleged pepper. He smudged a crude letter C on Graham's chest. It still doesn't change the fact that you're a coward and always will be. I can't wait for Friday. I'm going to love watching your first and final flight, Pipsqueak. Graham stepped away from the bully. Blord snorted at Graham and then fled, crossing the rope bridge with ease, although he did fly over the gap in the bridge with far more show than was necessary. Skinnerd and Reginald did the same, but with a good deal of fumbling and cursing, especially when Skinner got his foot stuck for a second. Graham shouted, Hey, wait, you have to get Ott down. Light tapping on his shoulder caused Graham to whirl around. Ott was no longer hanging on the statue. His stubby feet were now safely planted on the ground. Not a problem. I'm already down. How'd you do that? Ott scampered over to his satchel and began salvaging the few school materials the bullies hadn't tossed off the plateau. Not sure. They certainly didn't do it. He looked at the statue of Malcolm Parsons. If I didn't know better, I'd say Parsons lowered me himself. Is that even possible? No way. It's been solid stone for over 20 years. It's impossible for a gargoyle to do that. Graham's eyes widened as he too scoped out the statue. The farmer's arms were still reaching for the clouds, and his face was upturned toward the rising sun. Can they do that? Ott asked. I don't know. No one's ever mentioned it before. Ott shrugged. Yeah. Well, maybe a good stiff breeze knocked me free. Let's just go with that. We better get going. Mom will kill me if I'm late for school. Graham marched toward the bridge. Ott cinched his knapsack and chased after him. Wait, I want to check something. The troll streaked his thumb through the dusty sea Blord had marked Graham with. The troll sniffed his now blackened thumb and plopped it in his wide mouth. He sucked on it briefly, then sneezed. Graham stared at his friend expectantly. Ott clapped Graham on the back. Yep, just as I suspected. Pepper. The troll grinned and licked his lips. Now, I'm super hungry. So that was the end of that chapter, and next is chapter 6.